Appreciate you not banning me from my last time of being late.
No, only if it happened more than once. Um, um, Black people tend to be late all the time. Have you noticed that?
I haven't really timed anyone coming somewhere, so I don't really know. All I know is I'm typically not late for
Right.
anything, and
Yeah.
I was last time.
Well, I appreciate you coming back. You want to respond to my biblical question first? How do you see women?
Certainly needed for the family structure. A good mother is certainly needed for the family structure, as is a good father. A good father is a little bit more important, as we've seen. Children need fathers in the home to be able to channel their testosterone from prepubescent to postpubescent stages. Women, I see as we should be venerating them as housewives. We should be getting back to the more traditional roles of women, which is the housewife and raising the children and making and participating in the community and things like that, instead of being in the workforce. That's how I see it.
So you see them barefoot and pregnant and in the kitchen?
Well, not necessarily just in the kitchen, but I just think that
No,
they
I'm
should
just
be
kidding.
in the community. I think
Yeah.
that they should be raising the family. And with that, if we were able to venerate the housewife and get women back into more
Yeah.
traditional roles, instead of telling them, oh, you're getting paid less than men all the time, so we need to raise your wages and make it more than men's. And we all have seen the studies and the history of what happens after that. Even Tucker Carlson talks about it. Where men's wages go down,
Yeah.
then the structure of the family breaks apart even more. And, wages go down, too, as more women enter into the workforce and demand higher wages.
Are you married?
I am married, yeah.
And so your wife is a stay-at-home mother?
Yeah, for the most part. I mean,
Good.
throughout our, sometimes when we ran into some financial difficulties, she would have to go get a part-time job here and there. So I
Right.
understand right now in this modern
Sometime,
day and
yeah.
age, obviously people need two incomes. But I think that if we were to change our culture as Americans as a whole, and like I said, venerate the housewife, prop up that housewife role, and the role in the community, I think that we could change our culture for the better and start
Yeah.
raising wages.
Also, we need to cut back on taxes and so much government spending on other folks, and the workers need to be able to bring more of their money home. Then the wives wouldn't have to go out to work.
Right, exactly.
Let me ask, what is a man? Besides the body part, what is a man?
Yeah, you asked me this last time. I mean, I would say that my vision of a man, as I was growing up, I always wanted to have kids. I always wanted to have a family.
Yeah, me too.
And my vision of a man was making sure that your family is taken care of, making sure that your family is protected. You protect your family first, and you make sure that you stay with your wife and you raise your kids together no matter what. You try to
Yeah.
work it out, and you follow God with your wife. So
Are you a Christian?
I am. Yeah.
You're a Christian. You did a video on falling birth rates, religion and fathers in America. What happened with that?
Yeah, so basically I talked about essentially just how the fall in Christianity, it undoubtedly correlates to the fall in birth rates in America. And the only reason why it's not seen as like this drastic epidemic in the media is because we're importing so many millions of people from south of our border.
Yeah.
Our birth rates, if we weren't doing that, we would see this and we would say, we have to do something. The government has to start making propaganda and saying, we need to have children and things like that.
Right.
The same thing's happening in China, when they ended the one-child policy and they
Yes.
thought that it was going to explode into birth rates, which it didn't because they completely changed their culture. I think Stefan Molyneux actually just did a video on that recently. But yeah, I think that religion certainly correlates to the fall in birth rates. We saw the owner of Tesla. I always forget his name. What's the owner's?
I can't think of the name either.
I always forget his name when I'm talking about him. But he even said this in Utah. Utah has the highest birth rates in America, and they're also the most religious state per capita because of the Mormons.
Yeah. Yeah, they
And-
have lots of babies.
And so Christians typically, have more children than anyone else.
I noticed, Elon Musk.
Yeah, Elon Musk. Yep,
Yeah.
that's his name. Yeah.
I noticed that in the white community, the highest they seem to go for babies, if they decide to have one, is 2 and maybe 3. Who started that movement?
Well, it's actually 1.8. I think
Really?
yeah, whites are below replacement rate for sure.
Right. But
Whites are,
don't they understand that they are the most hated group on this side of heaven?
that's true. That's true.
And that if they don't have babies, that eventually they will become the minorities,
Yeah.
and that the people of color going to take this country from them and turn it into a ghetto?
Well, essentially, I mean, I was just talking about this on another show, and I was just showing some people here, some articles here out of X Factor, White Feminist Fails Minorities, Why Clinton Lost, and Why We Didn't Expect It, out of the Chicago Tribune. They said, white women own up to it. You're the reason Hillary lost. Out of the Slate, white women sold out the sisterhood and the world
Yeah.
by voting for Trump. And all of these articles, New York Times, BuzzFeed, white
Right.
people,
They're blamed
this,
for
white males,
everything.
white. And so, when 2050 does come, because, we start in 1965, it was like 89% white, this country, and then today it's 60% by 2050, and all the way to 2065, whites will become less than 50% of the population. There's no white person born less than 5 years old that is actually in the white majority anymore. That is over.
Amazing.
And so when that does come, certainly I do think about, what's going to happen?
I know,
if this is
man.
happening now,
Yeah.
it's quite worrisome for sure.
And also, I've noticed that people of color, whether they are blacks or Hispanics or whatever, they don't create anything. They don't keep anything going. They're not adding to it. They're taking what's already there, been created by white folks, and they're destroying it. And so I'm real concerned that it'll be over for our country if white men and women, especially conservative Christian men and women, become the minority. It's just going to be over. 77% of birth to black native-born mothers are out of wedlock. 57% of birth to Hispanic native-born mothers are out of wedlock. 49% of birth to Hispanic immigrant mothers are out of wedlock. And we're just going to have a mess on our hands. As a white male, what will you do once that happens if white people don't start having babies and, keeping control of things?
Well, and another thing you didn't mention is also the foreign-born Hispanics, and most Hispanics as well don't even graduate college.
Yeah.
So it's not like they're sending a bunch of productive members of society either for
Right.
immigration. They just want to keep, yeah. So, I mean, what I would do, the first thing I would do is, I don't know. There's much I can do. What I'm trying to do is break chain links here. And I talked about this yesterday on a different show I was invited onto. And you have different chain links in the whole conditioning of this society. You have the first chain link is the family. And even Marx and Engels wrote about this. They wrote about that the family structure is born out of capitalism. And a lot of these different communists wrote about destroying the family structure first to destroy society. And this is what they're trying to do. And that's the first chain link. That's at home. And then, as we noticed Jimmy Carter in 1979 created the Department of Education, which meant that the state took over education. So now the state controls the mind of your children, and you cannot control the mind of your children at home because the families are broken in all races.
Yeah.
Even whites are 30%, fatherless homes right now. 20.
That's why they
29%.
get rid of the men so that they can take over the women and children and brainwash them, dumb them down, demoralize them, and use them.
Right, and then they encourage, and especially in the black community, to be fatherless. As you've seen with some of these fair housing laws, for instance, I think there was some place in Dallas, I was just watching a video about this, and in Dallas they said that you can move into this particular Section 8 housing can be in this particular white area only for single mothers. And they gave a benefit to single mothers. So they actually were incentivized to be single mothers to get into this housing, into this safe neighborhood, and into this good school for their children. So they're incentivizing the black community to stay fatherless.
That information I gave you about the birth rate, folks, is from the Center for Immigration Studies, CIS.org, and using public data from the National Center for Health Statistics, reported by the Washington Examiner. So let me ask a white American male. You're the blonde guy, blue eyes, all that stuff. What does it feel like to be hated and blamed for everybody else's problems? And you know, what does that feel like to walk the streets every day knowing that you're hated because you're white?
I think a better way to frame it is I don't really feel anything. I just know that other people probably do, so I just try to debunk. I've devoted my entire channel to debunking the BS that's pushed by, mainstream media, by academia. As we just saw with this whole Donald Trump thing, they're trying to say that he was calling undocumented immigrants animals or something, when
Right.
it was really he was just responding to someone asking about MS-13. So he got the media to defend MS-13 though.
Right.
But yeah, so I just have devoted my entire channel and platform into debunking these things, talking about the colonial history of other peoples, like whether it be the Bantus, whether it be the Arabs, whether it be the Mongolians, whether it be everyone has a history of some sort of atrocity. So
When you're around quote unquote people of color, are you concerned that they may attack you in a
No.
physical way?
no,
Not at all?
No, I have tons of people who come over. I mean, they're just, we have family, or not family, but we have friends and stuff like
No,
that.
I mean like when you're just walking up and down the road.
No.
You're not.
No, it hasn't gotten like that yet. I don't know if it.
No, there are white people being attacked by blacks all the time.
Yeah, I mean, if you
in a physical way.
Okay, well, let me put it this way. When I lived in Chicago,
Yeah.
I did get jumped a couple times
By blacks.
Yeah.
Really?
For sure.
You just walking down the road?
No, not just walking down the road, but I'm just saying in school or something like that.
Yeah.
I went to Morgan Park High School, and it happened at least twice there. So.
Yeah, I was at I lived in Gary for a year, and they elected the first black mayor when I went there to go to school. And the very next day, all hell broke loose. The blacks were attacking the whites in the classrooms and the hallways, and it just went insane. I hurried up and packed my things and went back to Alabama.
In Gary, Indiana?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Gary's not a, it's not a.
Yeah. What happened? Why are so many people leaving Christianity?
I mean, with more, it's just natural. I mean, with more education, with, more money, things like that, as people get richer, people tend to have less kids and people tend to kind of stray away from Christianity. But there's also an attack on Christianity in this country, as we've seen. I mean, it's quite obvious in the media. I mean, you can attack you can say anything you want about Jesus Christ or anything else, or Christianity as a whole, or Catholics, or whatever the case may be. But dare you ever speak about Jewish people, or dare you ever speak about Muslims, or dare you ever speak about anything else? I think it's almost encouraged to talk bad about Christianity. So there's sort of this stigma that's left around.
They won't even say anything negative about that guy, Allahu Akbar. We need to know why our countries are getting involved in wars and things like that. Why are they doing this?
We need to certainly take care of home first. And this is the reason why so many people voted for Donald Trump, is because he said that he was not going to be participating in any of these foreign wars where we go and build a school and blow up another school and build another school and blow up another school. So we want to focus on economic protectionism. We want to put tariffs on imported goods. We want to focus on home. We don't want to get involved in wars. He talked about pulling troops out of Syria until the gas attack happened. Such a convenient time.
Well, he just went in there and kicked butts for a minute and came back.
Yeah, so we want to focus on home for sure.
So let me go to the busy phone. Brandon, a first-time caller out of Philadelphia. Brandon, thanks for calling. You're on with Vincent.
Hey, Jesse, can you hear me?
Yes, sir. Go ahead.
Awesome. I'm a big fan of yours. This is actually my first time calling.
Well, thank you.
This is no problem. I've been listening to you for about a year now. And I, hear you talk a lot about, the Democrats and the Republicans. And, to my understanding, I had no clue why, black people are, Democrats. And I know you blame, the whole fall of the black family, due to, the fall of the man and, the government. But what's your whole intake? And it's funny that, a few minutes ago I heard you speaking about the Jews, because that was my question. Are you familiar with, like, the Rothschilds and the Rockefellers? And I know you're not a big conspiracy theorist, but you don't think that they play a part of, the economy and, the way it's going for the family? And do you believe that the U.S. government are controlled by, England, Queen Elizabeth, Rothschilds, Rockefellers, the elite Jews? What's your take on that?
I'm not as up on it as you guys are, but I do know that, as I was just telling Vincent, that I believe all governments are corrupt, and I believe that they work together for destruction to maintain power and control. And that's why we, the people in our country, have to take back the government and then vote in people like the Great White Hope, who is going to put the country first. Because if we're ended up in wars and things like that we should not be involved in, there's something wrong with our government, which means something is wrong with us, because it's we who voted these people in, and we keep voting in the same people who are doing things that we don't like. So, and the Rothschild and all that, yes, they are having a negative impact on our country. They're controlling. I'm aware of that. But it's never going to change until we, the people, change.
Anti, family structure sort of movies and Hollywood and TV and all this hip-hop culture that's going on right now that's basically advocating for black American males to be gang members and hip-hop, all this. So it certainly is coming from people that control our media and our music and everything like that. So, yeah,
what
I would
happened
say
to
socially,
white
yes.
people? They built this country. They were here first. They built the greatest country on this side of heaven. What happened to the white men that they lost control? How did they lose control of something that they built? It's like you built your own house and then you let others come and take over. What happened to the white man that happened? I know why black men are pathetic and weak and girly and don't have anything and
Right, well,
act like
I
women
think
and controlled by the government. But I don't know why white men are allowing that or becoming that way. Why did you let others take over your country?
A lot of people know that the housing crisis was mainly due to, the final inevitable rise in interest rates that was going to happen, inevitably, and also loans and the government basically virtue signaling and saying that we need to be giving loans out to ethnic minorities that really couldn't afford it and then raising their interest rates on their variable interest, on their variable interest loans.
And the minorities don't pay back anyway.
Right.
Have you ever loaned minorities some money?
I haven't.
And you never get it back.
No, it's not true.
And then when you see them, they get mad at you if you ask for your money. Isn't that right, Joel? Isn't that right?
I have some buddies I've loaned some money to.
Right.
So what?
I said most of the time that is right.
Thank you.
All right, well, let's get away from this though. Let's talk about what.
Yeah, I have one more question.
Hold on, let Vincent finish.
What I was going to say is, I think it goes, caller. I think it goes back further than that. Like I said, it goes back to when the Federal Reserve was established, which was in 1919, and we all know what happened. And this happened after World War I. And just as I said, the U.S. government had absolutely zero business in World War I. Mm-hmm. They were essentially what happened was the Zionists came with the Balfour Declaration. The Zionists came and said, "Hey, Britain, you don't have to pull out of this war. We know you're losing. You don't have to pull it out. We will guarantee you a win. You do not have to sign any peace treaty with Germany. We'll get the U.S. into war if you give us this piece of Palestine." We all know the British, imperialism back then. They didn't have really any right to give Palestine to the Zionists, but they did with the Balfour Declaration.
But it just seemed like such a waste of time to talk about that when we're not, because even during those days, white people still had to vote. They had the right to vote. Right. They had the power. What happened? No one to tell me what happened.
Well,
and it's a horrible mistake to talk about what's going on without understanding what happened. We need to figure out what happened so we can get that straight and overcome all that stuff.
Right.
I mean, we elected President Trump because we were fed up with the Republicans, we were fed up with the Democrats, we were fed up with illegal aliens and all that crap. So we put in a man in our country that says, "I'll straighten it out." So why can't we figure out what went wrong here?
We need to ban.
I never hear that kind of talk.
We need to get rid of the IMF. We need to get rid of the central banks. We need to ban the world banks, and then we will be able to control our government again.
But how do we do all that? Do we get the government out and put in fresh people?
Yeah.
Well, let's talk about how to do that. That's what needs to happen. We need action.